And so she was like, oh, okay, well, if you're not going to give us any notes, then you can't benefit from our notes. And I was like, damn, like it's like that, like. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Gloria and I am back with another video. So I wanted to do a quick story time for a change. I never do a story time and I haven't done one yet, but I did want to talk about the toxicity of law school and share one of my own little anecdotes about what it's like to be at law school and how competitive it can be. And you can lose friends along the way and people change, and you know, it just gets really the gloves come off at some point, and people that you thought you knew, people that you thought were your friends, turn out to not be your friend. So let me just quickly get into it. Definitely get your tea, you know, because we're going to be spilling some tea. See what I did there? But yeah, well, I'm going to be talking about some things. So you know, it should be a quick video. I'm going to try and make it quick, but you know, get comfortable, get your tea, get your coffee, and let's get right into it. The toxicity of law school. Okay, so I was kicked out of the study group. How this happened was that I was in a study group that I was invited into by a friend who I knew from outside of the law school. And you know, in my first year of law school, I pretty much kind of did my own thing. I did this solo dolo thing and figured out that it wasn't helping. I was really struggling and I didn't have much of a support system. I knew this one friend and she was in a study group with a whole bunch of other people in our class, and so she said, hey, we're in a study group, it'd be so great to have you join us, so you know, come on and join the study group. And you know, I guess she had spoken to her friends about it, or maybe not, I don't know. And they, you know, they invited me in, and so I joined the study group. They had a system in place already before I'd arrived, and so when I arrived, they were like, okay, well, we have a system in place for tests and exams where we split up the workload in terms of either each person gets a course that they're supposed to study, and then we all swap notes, or you know, that person is responsible for telling everyone how, you know, what the cases are and what the core issues are in that course, or you know, each person does a topic for a course or something like that. So when I first joined, they had already divided all of the work up amongst themselves, and so I didn't have anything to do. And there seemed to be like a queen bee in the group who was not the friend that had invited me, but another person. And so she kind of was, you know, kind of running the show. Not that it was explicitly stated, but it was just from my observations. She seemed to be the one everyone deferred to for how things should go in the study group, and you know, she seemed to have the final say on a lot of issues. And of course, I was new, and they were, not only were they study group members, but they were actually friends, so they had a whole social life and a whole, you know, relationship outside of our relationship in the law school. Coming in as an outsider, you know, I just got in with the flow in what they were doing. It must have been like second semester, I think, or maybe first semester, I don't remember, but I think it might have been second semester. They had divided the work. I remember the first issue that came up was that Queen Bee didn't like the way that I wrote my notes. So all of my notes are handwritten. That's how I study, right? I handwrite my notes, and it's just, I make mind maps, and that's how I think. At least for law school, that's what helped me. I assumed that, you know, I was finally given like a few courses to do, so when I was given that course, I assumed that it would be fine, that I would share my mind map with other people as long as it was clear and legible. but you know, this girl was like, oh no, you know, can you type this out, because I don't really like your mind map, I don't really understand it. And I'm like, well, it's, you know, it's a mind map, it's just supposed to give you the basics, but we're all supposed to be doing our own studying and then use the study group as kind of a support system to fill in gaps, to answer questions that we don't understand, not to replace notes that you haven't been writing. At least that's how I thought about it, and that's how I approached study groups. But I think for other people and for her, she kind of saw it as like, you are responsible for teaching me what's been going on in this class, and you know, telling me everything I don't know and providing me with perfect notes that I can understand and easily digest. And so already from that situation, we kind of there was a bit of tension, because I was just like, listen, that's not, you know, you're gonna have to work with the notes that I gave you. I can't be responsible for making notes that work for me and the way that I think, as well as making a whole set of notes, a duplicate set of notes, but in a different style for the rest of the group. Like, that just didn't make sense to me. It was a waste of time, it was a waste of energy in an environment where we didn't have much of any of that. It just didn't make sense. So that was the first issue. Again, you know, go on into that might have been like the end of second year, going into third year. Going into final year, there had been tensions, like I said, on the group, and we had like a group chat, and we would speak about issues, and we would, you know, either issues that were happening on the campus or issues that were just political conversations. And a lot of the time we would butt heads, but I never took it personally, because I mean, we're in the law school and people disagree all the time, and I'm also a headstrong person, so maybe our personalities clashed for that reason. But yeah, so we had this kind of tense relationship, but for me it's not something that I took personally. First of all, because she wasn't a friend like that. She was someone I knew and worked with within the law school and respected as a colleague, but not like someone who I felt like they had to like me. You know, fast forward into final year, things got really hectic in terms of, you know, people are signing articles, they're getting signed by firms, they're figuring out what their next step is and all of this stuff. In my final year, I was super involved in student governance. I was, you know, working side jobs. I was doing a lot. And so when exams rolled around, Queen Bee, you know, decided on behalf of the study group that, hey guys, we need notes at least like 3-4 weeks before the exam start. Now, we all knew realistically this doesn't make sense. That's just not how people work. There's so much coursework to get through that no one has really consolidated notes for their designated courses that far out before the exam. Like, it doesn't make sense. So, you know, I flagged this and I said, hey guys, you know, it's a bit too early to be expecting us to have notes. Don't you think we should maybe make the deadline for, you know, swapping study notes maybe like a week and a half before the exam happens? She's like, no, we can't do that. Yeah, it's just unacceptable, we can't do that. And then I said, well, I am really busy, and my course, the one that I was assigned to give notes to the group to, was the first exam. And so I was like, I'm swamped right now. I know between everything that I'm doing, as well as all the coursework that I still need to finish, assignments, tests, etc., I'm just not going to be ready by that time. And so she was like, oh, okay, well, if you're not going to give us any notes, then you can't benefit from our notes. And I was like, damn, like it's like that, like, why? You know, and I just didn't understand why it had to be, you know, why everything had to kind of be so like strict and inflexible, because we knew that people were not going to have their notes ready by that time. Lo and behold, just as I said, no one was ready with their notes at the supposed deadline, her included, because as I said, everyone was busy. I decided to do my own studying on the side, since I'd basically been told, you're not going to benefit from the rest of the group. Since we can't benefit from your work, you're not going to be able to benefit from the rest of the group. I thought it was fair. I was just like, well, I suppose that's fair, but I did think it was a little bit harsh. But it was fine, because luckily I did my own studying. And again, as I said, I always viewed study groups as a support, an additional study support, not like the main source of all of my knowledge, right? It's not like I'm not going to class, I'm not doing my own readings, I'm not writing my own notes, and therefore I need the study group to tell me everything. At the time, actually, my laptop crashed and it had notes for so many of, like, all of my notes basically that were in digital form disappeared. But this was, a few weeks before the exam happened, so it was absolutely devastating. I was freaking out. I had to ask other people to give me notes, and but then, because as I said, when I do my studying, it kind of forced me to start preparing my notes earlier than I would have, but also because I do my studying in handwritten form, it meant that even though my laptop had crashed, I did have study notes on the side that were in written form. So that saved my life a lot. And yeah, so when the exam period came around and consolidation week came around, and everyone's doing their studying before the week of the first exam started, people are on the group like, hey guys, how do you answer this question? What's the case for this issue? How do we understand these issues, etc.? And I was there on the group just like, oh, this is how you understand that, and answering all the questions, and this is the case you need to know, and these are the different issues you need to know, and actually no, you're wrong, this is how you answer that question. Even for courses that I wasn't meant to study for, I was providing notes for those cases as well, because I basically like kicked into survival mode and worked my butt off, because I knew that I didn't have the luxury of having online notes, and was super prepared, even more prepared than the rest of the group, even though I had said that no one is going to be prepared by the deadline that you've set. And I kind of felt like at the time, Queen Bee was kind of just being harsh. I suppose she felt in some sense that I wasn't pulling my weight, and so she was, I don't know, I just felt like she was being unnecessarily mean, basically. Exams happened, we graduated, we essentially stopped being friends. But the next year I started my master's program, and so we all graduated from the LLB. The next year I started my master's program, and just before the year started, like right at the beginning, before everyone else had come onto campus, I met the friend who had invited me into the group in the first place. So because we had kind of still kept talking, and we were still friendly. I had no issues with her really, but then she was like to me, hey, did you know that while we had a group chat for our study group, another separate group was created without you? And I was like, what? And I mean, I had suspected that that was happening already, because you kind of know when people, number one, don't like you, but number two, are talking behind your back, and you just have a sense of it, even on like a WhatsApp group. So when there's a conversation that's been happening, or has happened, or is happening outside of the group, and then when people come in the group and are interacting in such a way where it's like they have inside jokes and inside information that you're not aware of, and you're perfectly, like, you're not dumb, right? Like, you can sense that. And so that was the case with me. Like, I knew that something was happening. I didn't know that it had come to the point where they would make a whole separate WhatsApp group without me in it. And I always felt like, well, if they felt like I wasn't pulling my weight, then why did no one just say, hey, we feel like you're not pulling your weight, we feel like you're not contributing to the study group, even though in my opinion I was contributing, and in fact I ended up being the person people would come to for notes, who would provide them with notes on subjects that I wasn't even supposed to, that were assigned to other people. And another guy then he wasn't even in the group, came to me later and was like, hey, you know, I heard about your group and how they created a whole nother WhatsApp group about you, and I thought that was so crazy, like how could they do that? But you know, this girl told me that, you know, Gloria is we were really mean to her and we were really unkind to her, but she actually is the one who's now thriving. And I remember just sitting there just like, wait. I actually asked her and I said, you're my friend. If you knew that there was a separate group that had been created in which I was being discussed, or people were complaining about like my work ethic in the group, or there was some sort of disagreement, number one, why didn't you just say, hey guys, this is wrong, why don't we just address the issue with her, as opposed to, you know, creating a separate WhatsApp group? And additionally, why didn't you tell me that? Why are you only telling me this now, that there was this other group that was created? She had no response. Obviously she couldn't tell me why she hadn't been honest with me about this other group, or you know, why she hadn't defended me with her friends. And perhaps it was because she kind of low-key disagreed, perhaps it was because, you know, Queen Bee was, you know, Queen Bee, and she was generally non-confrontational, and oftentimes she would be saddled with, when I would say, hey, I'm not gonna do this, this is way too much for me, like I'm not gonna, this is what I can do in order to contribute to the study group, but I'm not gonna do anything beyond that. The Queen Bee would be like, oh okay, well you are gonna do Gloria's work, and you know, she would be saddled with all of this extra studying to do that she was struggling with. And so I don't know, I was shocked, because I was like, they created a whole other study group for me, like, or just because they didn't want to be honest with me, and I suppose just like be honest and say, hey, can you leave the study group because we feel like you're not pulling your weight. But I felt like it was done in a really mean-spirited way, and that is how law school can get. Like, I think my story is not a singular story. There are tons of stories that I've heard from friends, other colleagues, other people in the law school, even some JDs in the law school now talk about how, you know, cliques form, these little mean-spirited petty things happen all the time, especially towards final year and graduation year, where, you know, people are going off to do other things, and you know, you start to look at each other, size each other up, and it's a common phenomenon within law schools for it to be really, really competitive and really, really toxic, and to meet unkind people. And you know, I think the profession gets a bad rep, but I think some of those habits and cultures are started very early on within law school, before you even get to practice and meet, you know, really unkind, corrupt, or you know, just morally bereft individuals in the legal field. A lot of that starts right at law school, and it's something about the law school itself. I think it's something about legal education itself and the way that it's structured. It makes it seem as though you have to, in order to succeed, you have to succeed by yourself, and that there's no space for more than one person in a room, or one person at the top. And I think that filters down into the students and the way that they study, and of course media, and the way that we just understand the legal field, because it's, for many of us in our jurisdictions, it's an adversarial system. So one person against another person, and you're just going at it. And so we adopt that persona and that attitude towards each other as students and you know, as friends sometimes. So I just want to say, if you have experienced that sort of thing, then, or experience a mean-spiritedness within the law school, know that it's not unusual. You are not the only person, and as long as you're doing what's right and you are doing you know, you're not hurting anyone, then I think that, you know, that you get over it. If you do decide to stay in the law school beyond the LLB or the JD, then, or you know, whatever the first qualification in your jurisdiction is called, then know that it does get better. You do find your feet, you do find your people, and I think even within the field, within the professional space, whether you go into corporate law or public interest law, or you know, whatever it is you end up doing, just find your people. But you know, be careful, watch your back, and don't be so naive and trusting, but at the same time just do the right thing. Be good to people, be nice to people, work hard, of course. And you know, also be careful about study groups, because not everyone works well in that environment. And I think it was at that stage that I realized that number one, I love to do research because it's an individual pursuit, and I can work by myself. I don't do well in groups unless I just gel well perfectly with people, and I need to be with people who are understanding and who are kind and who are respectful, like honest, but also respectful and kind in the way that they're honest, and people who can communicate whatever issues we have in a working relationship. And sometimes that combination of people, or people you click with to work with, is very difficult to find within study groups, and it can actually be detrimental to your academic success, because you're either saddled with too much work, or you know, groupthink takes over and you all start to you all start to think the same about how to address certain questions, how to answer certain questions. The tendency to plagiarize one another is really high when you're studying together or doing assignments together. But with that said, you know, as I said, in my first year I had done this whole, you know, working on myself, this lone wolf approach to law school, and I found it very difficult and very lonely. At the same time, being in a study group, I also found quite frustrating, but I think it was because of the kind of study group that I got into. And I think you have to be really smart about who you work well with. Maybe you don't have to put like 4 or 5 individuals. Maybe you work with one other person or 2 other people, so that it's 3 of you. And you know, the smaller the study group, I would argue the better that it is, as opposed to having like 5, 6 people in a study group. Don't do it. I did it. It's just a whole bunch of drama. There's a lot of ego to handle in and you know, law school is all about egos. We all have them, and so just be careful about that. So yeah, you guys, that's my little story time. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you have experienced anything like this in the law school before, this kind of competitive, cutthroat culture within the law school, and how you dealt with it. And also let me know what you think about study groups, and if they are effective for you, and you know, how you also handle people having different ways of learning and different work ethics. So yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much to the new subscribers. I'm so happy that my channel is growing, and I'm going to keep trying to be consistent and to keep the content coming. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye. Mwah.